Hi, welcome to Scratching the Surface. I'm Jarrett Fuller, and this is my podcast about design criticism and practice. Today's episode is a conversation I recorded with the Dutch designers, the husband and wife duo of Rianne Petter and Mark Mulder, back in October when the couple was in Baltimore to lead a weekend workshop for MICA's graphic design department, which I'm a part of. Although they're married, Rianne and Mark operate two independent practices that are really interesting that include everything from design, research, writing, and teaching, and have worked on research projects about race and politics and a really interesting project about posters. And the workshop that they led for us focused on this type of research and what it means and how it can fit into a traditional design practice. I personally got a lot out of the weekend working with them and found their way of thinking and working really interesting. So at the end of the workshop, I sat down with them for this conversation to learn about their background, how they think about their research, and the differences in design discourse between the Netherlands and the United States. I really enjoyed spending time with them, and I'm so excited to have had this time to talk to them for the podcast. So let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with Rianne and Mark. I talked to both of you separately kind of throughout these last 2 days, but I thought it would actually be a good place to start for this with a little bit of your background and actually how you started in graphic design. Um, and and then from there we'll go into kind of this more, something I've been calling this expanded practice, where it's design and research and teaching and all these other things that you do, but start kind of at the beginning and how you started with graphic design.
Like even before art school, or
Yeah, or wherever. Like, when did you know you wanted to be a graphic designer?
that's nice, because I knew when I wanted to become a graphic designer when I first saw in the newspaper the new identity for the police in Holland. It was made by Studio Dunbar.
Yeah.
Studio Dunbar. And I saw this picture of this new police car, and I was so amazed by that picture that I thought, this is what I wanted to do. But I didn't know that it was graphic design.
Right.
Then I had a teacher in high school, an art teacher, who actually was teaching a lot of art, but she also gave us a lot of assignments to make posters and stuff. And then that's when I thought that I wanted to become a graphic designer, or actually an advertiser. I didn't know the right distinction, I think. So then I applied and to art school, and I wasn't admitted. And I went to another school, which in a way that's called communication and design, which actually combines theory on communication, psychology, marketing, economics, social studies, and design all together.
Oh, interesting.
It's really like a broad study, and I liked that a lot. So I got a lot of information about communication in general, but then I really wanted to focus on making stuff. So I applied, after 4 years, I applied to art school, and then I was admitted, and there we met each other also. In second year, and to fast forward a bit, we graduated, and after that I started, actually a bit by accident, I just started my own practice, because I graduated, I didn't know what to do, and I got an assignment from the academy to make their new brochure. And then I just, all of a sudden, I had an own practice, and in a way, that's the start. It's really accidental.
Interesting. Was that similar for you?
Similar in a way that I also didn't knew what a graphic designer was when I was young. I think advertisement was also the thing I was interested in, so I also started more in the advertisement school. And after that, I started working at a photographer studio as an assistant, and did a lot of Photoshop projects. And then I was thinking, I was 21, I think. I said, I work for a boss now, but I want to be a bit independent. Want to do my own things. And so I said, let's go applying for art school. So I was looking for the perfect art school, and I ended up in Rotterdam, Willem de Kooning. And I started there at 1989, and I graduated in 2002. And in the end of 2002, we started doing some teaching in, what's the name again? The
Introductory courses.
Yeah. Okay.
So people who are not in art school yet, but want to do it. So we're teaching them. And after graduating, I started working as a graphic designer on a attic, it's called, I think, Zolder.
Yeah, on an attic.
Attic.
Yeah.
On a small attic with
studio.
With 6 other peoples, and we worked there in like terrible situations with
a lot of dust.
A lot of dust. My computer crashed because of the dust, I think. And after that, I started working once a week at the consultants agency just to get enough money to pay my rent.
Yeah.
And then I did it 1 year, and I had enough clients to start doing it full time. So I was lucky.
So do you have a practice together, or your kind of design practices are separate?
Yeah, we are very separate.
Okay.
We did
not just separate, very separate.
Yeah, very separate. Because we did some things together, and actually that worked out really well. We did some identity. For instance, an identity for a big call center. That's more commercial work. Actually, it worked really well, but we are not very good in collaborating because we are so we really have different design approaches.
Okay.
And so that's a lot of, I think, battling, which I don't want to do with my life.
That's probably smart. Yeah.
But it's even good because then we can react on each other's projects. If we're in the house and somebody's stuck in a project, you can share your troubles or your discussions with your clients.
Yeah. That's interesting. But both of you, as you were graduating, started teaching pretty much right away.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
And what was that like? I have kind of two-part question to this. When you were graduating, what were you thinking you kind of wanted to do after that? And then the second part is, as you're graduating and teaching, how did that kind of influence where you saw your practices going, if at all? That's kind of a big question.
I think it was never my ambition to be a teacher, but as I told you already, I was really interested in dialogues and what people think, what they want to communicate, and I think I loved that dialogue and helping them in their process. So in that way, I feel more like a coaching.
Oh yeah.
A coach.
A coach than a teacher.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was, I think, really different because I really chose also to have this practice as a teacher, and I really noticed that after a while, by the way, that I really noticed that a lot of my work is about education in a way. Also, if it's not in a teaching role, I like to teach people things or educate people.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my work I really like is to share insights that I have with others.
Right.
And then next to that, I think I am quite analytical also as a designer. I'm the one, a bit like you.
Yeah.
Also standing back, analyzing the whole situation.
Right.
Thinking about what is right or what is wrong and how it could be better or how you can ask a question that really flips everything.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the aspects I have and I can really use as a teacher. And
Right. Yeah.
so I think that's why it fits me. Um, it fits me, and it also fits in my practice as a graphic designer.
Do you see your teaching or your education practice having an influence or changing how you work as a designer, or has it made you think about your professional work differently by working with students, by coaching, and having to kind of think about design that way?
I think the connection with what I like about teaching or coaching and what I like about my job as a graphic designer is that I see my clients also as a person who wants to communicate something. So I really like it to work for smart companies or only independent person who has a company who wants to translate their own imago or what they wanted to tell. It's very, very personal, and if you can work with those people, it's also about translate what they say. It's also about debriefing, and that's what I really like about working with clients and translate it to a thing that they deserve or they need, or so in a way I'm really not a helper, but how do you say it?
Coach.
Nee, meer toegepast.
Oh, applied?
Service verleen.
You provide services.
Oh, right. In
a way.
Okay.
I try to translate it, and the graphic design is the tool I use.
Right, I get it. Yeah.
Sorry, I lost a bit track of your question.
How
teaching influences my practice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think at this moment it's really influencing, and really there's no distinction anymore between them. But at the first moment, that's because I'm now in the process of changing my studio into much more of a research practice. And also, this research is becoming more and more crucial to my way of teaching.
Right.
So so now they're really interconnected. But before, I think what was nice about teaching for me is that it learned a lot about the often larger theories that are or the larger discourse that is part of graphic design, or about how do you design a process, or how do you, because you're teaching it, so you're again on this more meta analytical level. So that constant, I think that analysis is constantly growing and growing, even beyond the practice of making. So I'm more concerned right now in on that level of how you do this, and also I think that's the way, or that's how I ended up on that research path.
Yeah.
Because that's I got more and more interested in how these things work.
Right.
So research about graphic design, that's or about how design influences ourselves and our way we look at things.
And it's also a big inspiration, I think, to work with students.
Especially how they look, and also how they look at things, how new generations look at things, how all these presumptions we have and are taught to us are being contested by them.
Like you asked us, what is graphic design?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, It's interesting because I said that to one of you yesterday. I kind of have this thought that kind of every generation of graphic designers needs to reconsider what graphic design is for their generation. And I imagine that working with students and people who are younger just starting, they're kind of wide open to what it is or what it could be because they just don't know. And I could see how that could be like a huge inspiration on making you kind of think differently about it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit. You brought up research, and that was going to be one of my questions because I thought what I knew of both of you before you came here were your research projects, actually, not your I don't know a better word, but traditional design project, like the way we think about design. And I was curious a little bit about how that part of your practice started. Like as I mentioned to you just before we started recording, I saw the poster project. That was the first thing that I had heard of you, and I saw that first as a research project and then kind of second as a design project. And so I have two questions. One is how that kind of way of thinking about design and that kind of meta level, where that came from, or if that's kind of always been there. And then two, I really like how both of you approach the research as if it were still design. Like it's still a very making things process. And if that's just because you're designers and that's what you know.
Yeah. I already explained that we started before the title poster number 524 was there. We did more a matrix technical idea and how a research thing, a research tool, the matrix,
Right.
Then we are doing research. But the outcome was data and not a design or not a solution or not visual. And so I think the poster project, the poster research was not only research on posters, but it was also research on research because we didn't know where to start. And the Rietveld Academy, it was labs, gave us the opportunity to do research. And we wanted to research the poster, but where to start? There are no rules. What is design research? What is artistic research? All the terms. And we went to Gothenburg, and there was a symposium about artistic research, and everybody was doing totally different things, but it was all because they were artists and musicians, artists, graphic designers, and they wanted to explore their own werkgebied. Field of expertise. So they wanted to research music, wanted to research design.
Right.
And so they did it with their own tools, and I think when we realized the matrix part wasn't our tool, so that's why it didn't work. So let's take our own tools, and that's visual material. So let's research the poster as material. So that's why we made a corpse, a research corpse, a research collection. So that was for us the poster which we could research, and we searched it on image by cutting it, by dissecting it on its elements like typography, image, color. So that felt really natural. Because sometimes you try to research, but I'm a designer doing research, and I'm not a researcher doing research.
And I think that's a very interesting and important thing because we now often use this word as a design research or visual research or artistic research, and actually I'm not that happy with the term.
Okay.
Because it suggests like we want to be scientists, And so it also has this hierarchy of, we want to be scientists.
Yeah.
But science is something completely different.
Right.
Because science is looking for actual facts, perhaps truths.
Yeah.
Perhaps like the outcome is 8.
Right.
And so there's no, it's all in a way rational. And what we do is very, it's got to do with so much other things. But what I like, so I don't like the term because it suggests that we are now in a way are scientists, but
yeah,
like
or something else, like you're not designers anymore if you're
exactly.
a researcher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and also we should do like researchers.
Yeah.
Like we should act like researchers.
Right.
And I think we should act like who we are. We are designers.
And we should also, I love that.
And we care about our business and we care about graphic design. And
right.
So we want to evolve that part,
Yeah, and I think we should cherish all the things that we have as artists or something related to art, which is intuition, which is this artistry, which we don't really know what it is, but you know, there's this intuition and emotion and the visual realm, the image that is far more better than the word on some levels. And I think we should use that and cherish that, and also put this into our profile.
Right.
Like this is why design research is so much an addition to the traditional research.
Yeah.
And especially if it's added to social research or anthropological research, then it becomes really, I think, really interesting. And I think also we should. I'm right now, by the way, in the process of this because I was asked to make an article out of my research.
Okay.
And I'm really struggling with this because an article is text-based and it's also an academic article, which is not really my field.
Yeah. So
that's new, but also writing. I can write a piece, and I also can write it in English. But I am always uncomfortable with writing because I can't really voice exactly what I mean, and I can do that with design.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also that's why we should use design to publish about our research, and we should use design on all these levels.
Right.
As for instance, if you're doing an interview or you want to do an interview, I think you should design an interview.
Yeah.
And not design the questions only, but also design situation and design the form and the objects, and that's so much that's a so fascinating contribution to the existence.
And stick to your talents also.
Yeah, that's something I love the way that you phrase that, because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because this whole project is kind of about my interest in design criticism and how we talk about design. And I'm a designer first, but I kind of want to be a critic, or I'm trying to be a critic also. And this feeds into a bunch of things that we've already been talking about, but I've been wondering, is there a way to critique design through design instead of writing a text, about a piece? Or are there other ways to look at design and talk about design through design versus these other mediums, through a lecture or an interview or an essay? Can you do it through design? And I don't know. I think the answer, I think you can. But that's something I've been thinking about a lot, is how can you do that?
It depends on your talent again. Because I think the dialogue, I already told you, is a very important thing for me. I can think better. I can, if there's a chemical thing going on, it becomes better and better. So for me, it would be sit down with a group of people and talk about a design or designs, or that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And then something's going on also. you can say your reaction on design could also be design, that you design something better.
Right. Yeah.
But so yeah, just stick to what you're good at, and don't try to be something that you think you should be or do. And
No, I totally agree, and I think that's you should also know who you are as a person and what your talents are as a person. And if you want to write a text, go and write a text. The text is also design.
Right. Yeah.
So, but if you are good at it, or you feel comfortable in that structure, then I think you should use it. But on the other hand, there is so much, I think, open field in that, in using design to write about research, and then write. I mean, in every way. You can also, of course, visually write, or I don't know, like the collections of things. Or, That's and I think there's also a large field that can be explored, and a lot of academics have a lot of problems with that, because that academic texts have so many rules. So you have to have footnotes and sources, blah blah blah, this and this. But you can also do this in design.
Yeah.
And I think it would lead to a far more accessible and readable piece of information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I think the most beautiful thing about it.
Right, and that's that's kind of, we were talking about this yesterday also, of this kind of at least in the United States, there's a certain like anti-intellectualism when it comes to design sometimes, and it's very designer serves a client, and you do that and you make money, and often the kind of the thinking and the theory gets lost or gets forgotten, or not as much time is spent on that. And so for me, who's someone who is really interested in that part of it and wants to kind of show other people that that can be interesting too, is something I think about is writing a text, does that get it to the people who would already not want to read that?
Exactly.
But using another format or something, having a conversation like this is a different way to consume that kind of information, which I think is interesting. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit just about the culture that you work in, and it's very easy for me as an American to look at European design as smarter, more theoretical, more interesting. We were talking yesterday, like your work already, but Metahaven, Experimental Jet Set, there's this like rich theory in it. And I just kind of like want to ask you, am I romanticizing that? Am I making that kind of, is that an accurate description, or is that kind of just the best of the best is what kind of comes over here? Or like, what is design culture like?
Oh, well, wow, that's a good question. Because I'm a bit, how you say it, ambiguous about it. Because in a way, Metahaven, for instance, I love Metahaven, by the way. They make beautiful things.
He was our teacher.
I heard that, yeah.
And I love how they use design and design research. But on the other hand, if I look at what the profession is or should be, I don't think they're graphic designers.
No, but that's strange, because you agreed with me when I said if you have to do what you have to do, you use your talents, and he's a really good critic, and he's a really good writer, and I think he combines it. So he's really good at what he's doing.
Yeah.
When he wants to call it graphic design, because he's working with identities, visualizations, then I think,
Right.
Why should you exclude it from graphic design?
No, well, that's what I wanted to say
Okay.
before you interrupt.
Okay.
No, I like having like an argument on the microphone. This is good. This is the new debate.
Then you have to come live with us.
No, because they live in this sort of they live in well, you can, of course, you can call it graphic design, but maybe on a very basic level, I miss the client in it.
Yeah.
The role of the client and the commission in it. So again, this is not. I love their work, and I think it's really about, or maybe next step in graphic design. But if you're talking about this realm of graphic design in America,
Yeah.
where it's so connected to clients who want to sell stuff and need a graphic designer to communicate what they want to sell.
Right.
Or they have information they want to share, and they use the graphic designer to share that information.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I watched just maybe 2 weeks ago or so, I watched an old talk of a lecture of Daniel van der Velden and Maureen Moran when they were working together. And what I thought was interesting was he was talking about a lot of the same theories that he kind of does as Metahaven, but there were clients involved.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that it was the same, he was still pursuing these same ideas, but in Metahaven, that client is gone. And I don't know, I don't have an opinion on that. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to, that's something I've been thinking about also, which I'm fascinated by. I want to talk to him too.
Well, that's actually because they put themselves always in the position that they're in a way very autonomous. They're these autonomous graphic designers. In a way, which is a strange, it's a strange word, I think, because they always they had this client, but they in a way did what they wanted. And they sell it also very good to
that's
the client.
what we were asked for also.
Yeah, and and I think
festival.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And all the good Dutch designers right now that you see, that said Metahaven, Mavis and van Deurs, 75B, Tonic, they in a way have gained a sort autonomous position. They're in a way they get a client, but they also in a way do what they want.
Yeah.
Or they have a kind of status that the client thinks is interesting, and they want their design to be designed by those people.
Right.
So like heroes, like pop stars,
and
pop stars.
And that's, I think, a problem in itself, because they're actually it's actually not about the graphic designers, but it's about the culture of commission. You could say. The culture of the client. That the client asks not somebody to make great design, but he asks actually a designer who is a great designer. So he get it?
Yeah.
For instance, in Rotterdam, in the recent years, like before we had a great, a lot of culture institutes had a very diverse set of designers, which made a really diverse and interesting culture of cultural design, cultural graphic design. Now, culture is really under pressure. There's a lot of money cuts. All these cultural institutes are asked to really profile themselves and brand themselves, and they think also that graphic design is a way to brand, but actually the graphic designer is a way to brand themselves.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
And no, but it's really interesting and scary.
Yeah.
Because now every middle big to big cultural institute in Rotterdam uses 75B, which is a Rotterdam-based design agency.
Right.
and I'm a really big fan of 75 Men. So I think they make great works. But if I see
You miss the diversity.
yeah, the graphic
Right.
landscape,
Yeah.
I see repetitions of it all, and I don't see these young people having these chances to work in a cultural field.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that has to do with changed culture of clients. I think.
Yeah, because the cultural clients also struggling with money. The cultural institutes.
Yeah.
I think in 2012 a lot of money was cut off from their budgets from the state because there was another.
2008 already.
Yeah, 2008 was the
When-
last
when the
time
crisis.
4 years were
yeah.
spent. So
Yeah.
companies got like for 4 years or festivals for 4 years money from the state doing it. In 2012, a lot of companies just stopped, I think, or festivals. And if you don't have that much cultural institutes, the graphic designer don't have that much work.
And the history of Dutch graphic design is catalyzed or funded by in a way the government. Because we have these large cultural institutes and they have a lot of funds to create an more experimental environment, but also we had, of course, the PTT, the mail, and the Dutch Railway, who used to be national corporations, and they got money, but they also got a more institutional program to use graphic design to identify them with.
Right.
You got like the mail used to have a something called, I think, the Aesthetical Commission.
Oh wow.
It was run by Ootje Oxenaar, quite a famous graphic designer, and he was a graphic designer, but afterwards he became director of this commission of aesthetic commission of the PTT, and he was kind of scouting all these new graphic designers and asked them to make stamps and make booklets, and there was already this institutionalized culture of nurturing graphic design to become this thing.
Right.
That's not anymore. That's
not
there anymore. No.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. But there's another thing I think happening as a reaction to this is that a lot of like new graphic designers also they are defining a new Dutch graphic design, but it's now really bottom up. They just start on their own projects with little to no money, and they just start like these little pop-up stores or little organizations.
Having 2 jobs.
Having a teaching job and like an autonomous artist job, like for instance this hackers and designers thing, which is amazing. They just do these really small things and gatherings, and they and it's just from there, and also thinking about doing things for fun and for nothing, as opposed to doing really commissioned work or teaching as a way to get money.
Right.
So that's I think really positive and really exciting what's happening there.
Yeah. I have just a couple more questions to wrap it up. This has been so interesting. So I could ask like so many more questions. The name of this podcast I'm calling Scratching the Surface, and the idea behind that is that I feel like so much of conversation around design is very surface level. It's kind of talking about the colors or the kerning or the choice of typeface, and I think that conversation is important and should be had, but I think that my opinion is that graphic design gets interesting when you talk about the stuff that's kind of below that surface and where it starts to connect with culture and these different things. And I'm wondering in your own work how you think about, do those things kind of play a role in your design process? Are you thinking about the culture that you're designing in and the history and kind of design theory and kind of all of those things, or like even your research when you're designing for a client? How do those things start to filter into that kind of work?
In a way, in every assignment, there will be a part of research.
Yeah.
Certain level, research in material, research in the subject, or research in I don't know what. But I don't know. That's a totally different part of research, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I realize that's like a hard kind of deep question in and of itself.
Now I'm now thinking about a project that I'm doing and something that I really want to do. So the thing I really want to do is make a more educational book for children in high school, no, not in high school, in elementary school.
Oh, okay.
To learn them a little bit more about visual culture and the meaning of images, because they have like math, they have how do you call it, language, writing, reading, but not about image or how icons work, or what could you tell about an image or something, analyzing it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so
that's a great idea.
I'm now want to get into that.
Yeah.
But I also need to take care of my children. I want to earn money. I have to earn money.
Right.
And I want to do a project like this. And so
that's
there's always a struggle in time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
And so I'm now doing also a project. I'm making a magazine which comes out twice a year for a retail company. They're making displays and they spread it around the world, the magazine. It's more an inspiration magazine. And then we're constantly thinking about what is inspiration.
Right.
And how can we inspire, and how can we give the magazine a higher level in graphic design, in its form, in its material. So on different layers I'm doing research, like in materials, in how the brain of children work, how images in public and daily life work, and where the images appear or icons.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So yeah, I think it's my personal urge or something. Your need. What I need to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to do this, and then you need to do this. So it's not clear in my situation.
Yeah.
And I'm a far more reflective person than more, for example, I'm reflecting on things, and I'm good at it, I think. And I'm not the person who really gets into a theory or in a...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why are you laughing?
No.
That's the truth. If I think something interesting, I dive in it.
Right.
It's true. Right. Because it's on my path.
Yeah.
And it's now what's now on my path. It's the educational thing for elementary school, dialogues, collaborations. Yeah.
If I recapture your question, I think it's also, maybe if I put it into my own words, I think maybe the whole question and the whole confusion we're in is that graphic design, of course we think that graphic design is more than type and color and shapes and stuff. That's because we are not we're not looking at graphic design right there.
Okay.
Because graphic design is not a goal in itself. It's a tool to get somewhere. As you saw in our workshop, we constantly say, okay, it's, I wanna reach this and this and this. This is my goal.
Right.
And how am I doing it? It's through graphic design. So graphic design is not a goal in itself. Well,
I love that.
Except for you. It's a goal, to talk about graphic design and to rethink graphic design. But in the normal use of graphic design, it's not the goal in itself.
Right.
It's not the goal in itself is not to make a beautiful poster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that's our goal as design, but that's also the goal a butcher has to make the best meatloaf.
Right.
Or,
Right.
Or the bakery wants to make the best bread.
Yeah.
But just like bread is a goal to get, to feed yourself, I think graphic design is a goal to communicate with.
Yeah.
And I think what's the biggest problem there, if you say, okay, but the discourse is only about these more formal levels, is that we're not having a discourse about what the purpose of graphic design is, and why should we even graphic design things?
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I think that's the whole thing, because there is a purpose, and there is a beautiful purpose and an important purpose. And that's really shifting, and that's really interesting also in this age of social media and the democratization of media tools, and we have a new role, because the traditional role is actually taken by customers or by citizens.
Right.
Everybody can Photoshop a flyer or can even make a poster.
Yes.
And we can argue that if it's beautiful or not, but that's actually not the point.
Right.
If you want to announce your party, you can make a flyer, and it will do its job. So it's a bit the same. Well, maybe it's similar to when photography was introduced. So also artists had to redefine who they are.
Right.
Which of course turned out to in this this more fine art, autonomous practice.
That's a great analogy.
So, and we're actually, I think that's not what we're doing, and that's why we need this strong discourse.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's a very, on a basic level, very good question for people. So, why should I go to this big design agency that charge me $100 or $200 an hour for a logo?
Right.
When I can also ask somebody, my neighbor who has Photoshop for a logo. There is a difference. We all know it.
Yeah.
But if we stay on the level of type and shape and color, then we're not discussing what it's all about.
We will all buy this graphic designer.
Yeah.
I was just getting ready to say, like, that is a perfect way to end this, and then you go and talk about death, and now it's like a sad ending. But I think
black humor.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right, and I think that was really interesting, and actually is like a really good way to just wrap it up. And I want to thank you for the time to talk. I thought this was perfect. I loved it. So thank you.
Thank you
for talking.
Thank you
for doing this,
Thank
and
you.
we're really interested in the outcome eventually.
Oh yeah, well definitely
Also
Send this
to
to
be
you.
part of your podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an honor.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope
it really is.
I hope it is. This episode was recorded on October 9th, 2016 in Baltimore, Maryland. Our theme music is by Andy Borgasani. We're on Twitter at Surface Podcast. You can find us on iTunes and SoundCloud and at scratchingthesurface.fm. Thanks for listening.